Hey guys, welcome back. As you can tell, we are no longer in the math garage. We are now in my basement. This video is going to explain to you a little bit about the rules of exponents. You may have seen this before in Algebra 2, but this is a good refresher, especially for the assignment in this unit that we're going to be doing. Okay, so let's talk about this. The rules of exponents. There's a couple different rules I want you guys to be aware of. The product rule, which if you can see over here, I'm going to try and ink on the page here. Product rule says that, a to the x power times a to the y power equals a to the x plus y. Now, as you can see here, all we've done is I've taken a base, they're both a's, and they have different exponents. One is x and one is y. And if I multiply these two things together, as long as they have the same base, I can add the exponents together and keep the base right here. So I can combine them from two separate things into one. So let's take a look at this a little bit more realistically over here. So if I had a to the 2 to the second power times a to the fifth power, that would equal a to the 2 plus 5, which would equal a to the seventh power. Okay, so if you put numbers in here, I could go, for instance, 3 to the second times 3 to the fifth would equal 3 to the 2 plus 5, which would equal 3 to the seventh power. Now, if you do it on the calculator, you can see how these two things are the same here. This thing up here and this thing down here. This whole side, if you multiply all that out in your calculator, it should equal 3 to the seventh power. Okay, that's review for that one. So let's go ahead and draw a line underneath that one there. Now let's talk about Let's talk about the quotient rule. Now, if you remember, quotient means division. So it's basically a to the x divided by a to the y. Now, the quotient rule says if I do that and they both have the same base, notice that the base is a, and they have different exponents, x and y. They can have the same exponents too. It doesn't really matter. If you divide those two things, they are going to equal. What happened to my draw thing? Did I lose my draw? There we go. They should equal a to the x minus y. Okay, I'm going to use the same numbers up here. I'm going to switch them around though so I don't get a negative exponent. So we're going to go a to the fifth divided by a to the second power. That should equal a to the 5 minus 2. Sorry, that's a minus sign. And that should equal a to the third power. Now, if I did this using exponent or using an actual number for the base value, it's the same thing as up here. So this would equal, I'm just going to write it over here like this. We'll go 3 to the fifth power divided by 3 to the second power. That should equal 3 to the 5 minus 2, which, down here, 3 to the third power. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. Just like the last one, we're just subtracting the top one by the bottom one. Oops. All right. The next one that you're going to need to know is the power rule. And that is basically if I take this, a to the x power, and I raise that entire thing to a power of y, then that simply equals a to the x times y, or just a to the x y power. Okay, so if I did that using numbers, I'm going to do it again over here. A squared, if I raise that to the fifth power, that's going to equal a to the 2 times 5, which equals a to the 10th. I think you kind of get the picture here. Okay, I'm just going to pretend like I can still see myself. Okay, so the power of the product rule, that basically says if I have two numbers, hello, where'd my inking pen go? There it is. Okay, so this says if I have two numbers, two bases, a times b, and I raise both of those to the x power, then I can basically separate those and go a to the x, b to the x. Okay, pretty straightforward. I know we didn't do an example for this one, but well, let's do it anyways. A times b squared should equal a squared b squared. Okay, notice we can't combine these like we did up here on the product rule because they have different bases. So I can't say this is ab to the fourth because it isn't, because these are two different bases here. Okay, so if we go back down here to the negative exponent rule, I'm going to go a to the negative 1 power. So notice how the exponent is a negative number now. That all that does is it just takes this power and it puts it, let's go to the x power. It turns this into a fraction, and we keep the same exponent down here, as you can see, except for it's not negative anymore, it's positive, but we've just taken this and moved it to the denominator of a fraction. Now, similarly, if I had another situation where I had a fraction and on the denominator there was a negative exponent, that just flips it around and puts it on top. So that would turn into a to the x power. So you're basically just flipping them from top to bottom and so forth. Okay, guys, let me know if you have any questions on any of this. I am going to give you an assignment where you're going to have to kind of go through all these different rules of exponents in the assignment, but it shouldn't take you more than maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get it figured out. So go ahead and email me if you have any questions on this.